And you've just heard Portents, the title track from the new album by Wesley Chung. And I'm so pleased to be joined by Wesley now. Hello, Wesley.
Hey, Alistair.
So first of all, what can people expect from Portents now that it's out?
Well, it's more, it's a bit more indie rock than previous stuff I've done. If people that have listened to my music for a long time, it won't be a big surprise. But if you just listen to the last album, that was a lot more alt country. This one will be kind of a departure. So it's like, pretty straight ahead indie rock, moments of some folky bits. There's some real emo leanings with its like really noodly guitars in bits, and some choral moments as well. I think I really enjoyed adding those in there too. So that's what I think. I think that the main theme to take away from it is just I think it'll be a good album for people that have moved through seasons of life, that are finding themselves a bit displaced. This the line that you hear throughout the album at different points, kind of like a motif, is like lost and found, kind of feeling like you're, as you get older, maybe more solid in yourself, but at the same time moments where you're just reminded again that you feel a bit lost in the midst of it. So I think that just comes with just the changing seasons of life and relationships. So
it's interesting because I would say it sounds like you, but a kind of harder sound slightly, or a more kind of reflective album in general. You know, the Neon Coast was quite, as it suggests, kind of upbeat and summer and, you know, all of that stuff. This is more of a reflective in both sound and I think content as well.
Oh yeah, no, that's a really good description of them. Even the sound of this one, in some ways I wanted it to reflect I kind of like the music to reflect kind of a youthful urgency of like my 20s, meeting up with the lyrics, like the lyrical content of my 30s. And that kind of tension between the two of it. Musically, it's kind of like a love letter to a lot of the emo scene. That's always been really supportive of releasing my music or putting me on for shows and stuff like that. And but I guess part of the lyrics is just like, how do we do that? How do we keep making this sound well with the challenges of age and growing up and those, I don't know. So
I kind of wondered, because you came here from California, for those who don't know, whether this was kind of Scotland getting in your bones a bit more. More Presbyterian side to things.
Well, certainly with that's an interesting, the Neon Coast, I wanted it to have certain sounds that were that kind of transatlantic kind of blend of like really West Coast, but I can't really, like the more I stay in Scotland, the more it does kind of sink into me. And Glasgow as such a great city for kind of ends of spectrums, like really heavy indie rock, like really heavy post rock, and then also like chamber pop and stuff that's kind of like a bit retro and a bit kind of like left of center, but being kind of a joyful racket. And I think that's really nice. But the heaviness of the guitars, I think if I stayed in California, maybe there would be for a while when I was playing music in Southern California, the term was like jangly guitars. It was like there was a certain kind of bluesy jangly guitar, and surf rock is just in the bloodstream of Southern California, whether you love it or you don't. And so Neon Coast had some of those elements. This one does have like, there's a very dense kind of almost like thickness to the tone of the guitars in this one. That's a lot more influenced by some of like a bit of the heavier kind of Scottish indie rock sound. So I definitely has filtered in to my music playing.
And on the last record, you also worked with some fantastic musicians. Is that the same case this time around?
Yeah, I mean, both Neon Coast and even more so on Portents, this new album. Kieran Heather, like I couldn't make these albums without him. He's produced them um, and taken on even more kind of producer decisions in the creative process on this album. People might know Kieran from kind of playing in quite a few bands, probably most notably in like the indie folk scene for Washington Irving. He was in that band for many years. But he's been in a ton of bands. But he's a creative force that we just click, and his ideas whenever he says, I don't know if you're gonna like this, but here I just added this bit, and I'm always like, oh, I absolutely love it. Let's just make sure we turn that up. And his instincts work really well with mine. Uh, he played all the lead guitar and the bass on Portents. So, and we just kind of worked through, like once I wrote the songs, kind of bashing through like how those arrangements. Yeah, he's great. And we had Phil Wilkinson on drums, which is fantastic, and then a whole host of other musicians, just like adding vocals, adding keys. My friend Seth, Schaefer, he's been doing arrangements with me for like just over a decade now,
Right.
in bands with me. So we have kind of a shared language now. He knows when I'm talking about piano. He knows what I'm looking for when I'm asking for a mellotron. He gets the vibe that I'm looking for too. So yeah.
And were these songs written during the kind of lockdown period, or was there some already written before that?
They were all written before actually,
Oh,
and
they were all
then
written.
all mixed during the lockdown. So it's funny. It's funny writing an album all about transitions and yeah, kind of. Yeah, well, the portents itself is a word that means kind of omen and foreshadowing
Yeah.
of an upcoming. It's like signs and warnings of an upcoming like tremendous event, usually negative. So I didn't think it was going to be the the pandemic, and I didn't think that writing songs about death and renewal. I mean, the song "Seedling" that probably touches on that the most. I wrote that in the process of well, a lot of the songs like it wouldn't be a surprise to hear that I've um, fallen in love with gardening. So like a lot of like the imagery in the album is a lot about death and renewal within kind of gardening and phrases that I just keep thinking about the metaphor of the growing seasons and when I'm out in the garden. And then Seedling itself, I wrote just around the time that I lost the last two remaining grandparents, and then my niece and my son were born 3 weeks apart, just shortly months after. So it was kind of seeing this weird kind of death and renewal of the family, kind of seeing the final matriarch and patriarch of the family, and two of the newest additions to the family, and just kind of trying to make sense of all of it. So yeah.
That all happening in a short space of time, which I guess is it makes you think about those things.
Yeah, yeah.
And you had the launch at the Glad Cafe last Sunday. How was that?
Oh, it was amazing. It's it's the first like venue show I'd played in 3 years, which was wild, or maybe two and a half. But I played a house show about a month ago. That was the first, and that really threw me off. I had like it's like I had a crisis of self on on stage before. So this one went a lot went a lot better, but it was great. All the bands great. Grayling and Scots Whay Park. I spend a lot of time when I'm coming up with a release show to kind of think about the openers and how do they all fit really well. Just really to make people, if they're coming on the night, to feel like there's no filler here. It's all just it all works together. It's been really thought through, and Glad Cafe I really love as a space, and a venue is much more of like a community asset than just a business. So yeah.
Absolutely right. Yeah. And that kind of lineup is one that you do go for the whole night. You know, you're there for it. I would say, you know, you would
Yeah.
show. And was that the first time that you've played these songs live then? I guess it probably was.
Yeah, outside of that house show, this is the first one in front of a larger audience that yeah, and also full band. We just played all new songs except for one off of the last album. So to some, it might be quite a surprise. Then again, there's still those moments where like there's a lot of pedal steel on the new album, still because I'm in love with that instrument, and still, yeah. So I'm some of the same instrumentations, but but it was just a lot more rocking, just a lot more three guitars on stage. I haven't done that in a long time, so.
And before the album was released, you released a couple of singles, and it made me think: how do you choose which songs are your singles? Do you worry about that, or is it something you really take your time to go? Yeah, this is the single.
Yeah, I take my time, but I also love it as well. Like I love track order, because it's like you're making a movie or you're writing just a story, So it's kind of like what's the plot point? Where's the highest bit? It's funny because the other potential single is what you're gonna A Touch of Pink, which is funny that because and those were also when I shared it with friends and people that had worked on the album, they always said Something Old, Something New, Evergreen, and A Touch of Pink were the ones that stood out to them. So I actually didn't because I love Evergreen as a song, but I didn't know if that was just going to be like a favorite album track of people, but people kept mentioning that one, and I thought, yeah, well, that's so I was like pleasantly surprised, and I was like, let's definitely make that the single. I think that connects with people. So,
and you've had your launch gig. Are you plans to do any more live gigs?
Well, looking at February next year to do one. Steven at Struggletown Records, who's like he's the king, he's the best, and he's part of if people that are familiar with the emo world definitely know, and the hardcore world of Glasgow will definitely know him. And he's going to put up in his own message to me, he says, I'll get a show ready for February for the emo kids. So we're gonna we'll turn up the volume and we'll play. It'll be either mid to late February, so that'll be good.
Excellent. And where can people get your music from, Wesley? Is it just the usual places?
Yeah, I mean, streaming, it's all the usual places. The label that's releasing it is Storm Chasers Limited. That's in Chicago. A really amazing collective of musicians making a label that you can also do a monthly subscription. They do a vinyl subscription club. So I'm the album of, well, I guess it's being released in, I forget it. I think some people already got it maybe in November. So so it's great actually, because all the subscribers immediately, 400 vinyl were made, 200 just immediately got sent out to people. So if people want to pay for a subscription, and you get a lot of online content, but I just love it. It's a great group of really amazing musicians, all just showing you the inner workings of their songwriting process, and you get to be a part of the community. So it's cool. That's the kind of label I'd wanted to work with a while. Evan, who runs it with some of his other friends, been a pal for a long time, and he's just like one of the hardest working people I know in music, and such an incredible musician. So really, really pleased and humbled to have the album released with them.
That sounds great. I must check that out further myself.
Yeah.
It's great to see you, and thanks for taking the time to have a chat.
Oh, thank you so much. It was great to chat about it. Thank you.
And this is Wesley Chung and A Touch of Pink.